You've probably seen it by now. Rows of Waymos, the driverless robotaxis that have been unleashed onto the streets of LA, SF, Phoenix, and Austin, set on fire, tagged, windows broken, and spray painted with messages like "fuck ICE" during last weekend's protests in downtown Los Angeles. But the demonstrators were protesting against Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, and its escalation of workplace raids across LA County, as well as President Trump's mobilization of 2,000 National Guard members to LA, against the best wishes of the LA community, Mayor Karen Bass, and Governor Gavin Newsom. So, how did the Waymos find themselves caught in the middle of the tension between law enforcement and anti-ICE demonstrators? And how has Waymo become a symbol for protesters of everything that's wrong with society? The way I see it, there are 4 reasons why protesters hate Waymos. Firstly, if you've ever lived in a city where Waymos or other driverless robotaxis are on the road, you know that they are just plain annoying. The thing that most people don't realize about Waymos is that they need a place to park and charge at night. In San Francisco, a parking lot used to store Waymos was located next to a crowded apartment building. That meant that the Waymos would honk all night, waking up the residents and depriving them of their much-needed sleep. Take a look at this video.
That sound of honking is waking up neighbors lately in this South of Market neighborhood.
I get woken up at, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I look down and I'm convinced now it is coming from the Waymos.
Neighbors shared videos of driverless Waymo cars filing into the lot and backing into spots, which appears to trigger honking from the other Waymos.
This same thing is happening to residents in Santa Monica, California as well. And the worst part, residents say, is that there's nobody actually in the cars. So there's no human being to talk to solve the situation. It's like when you go to the self-checkout at the grocery store and something goes wrong, so you have to just stand there like a dumbass for like 30 seconds while you wait for an employee to come help you out. Now, imagine no employee ever came to help you. That's what's happening with Waymo all night, as the cars just keep on honking. And that's just in the parking lot. When the Waymos take to the streets, they are just as annoying. It's pretty common in LA to see Waymos just get stuck for some reason. And then they hold up all of the rest of the traffic in an already insanely traffic-heavy city. Not only that, but since they don't have an actual human being driver, they're also much more unpredictable on the streets. I've seen Waymos do some insane shit. I've seen them stop in the middle of a busy road. I've seen them swerve in front of other cars. Just things that, human beings would think is common sense not to do. Any human being outside of LA, that is. Our drivers here are a different breed. Okay, but so what if Waymos are insufferable? So are you, but we don't see protesters setting you on fire now, do we? No. Number 2, and this is where Waymo starts getting into shady territory. Number 2, Waymo reportedly has been extremely secretive with its crash data and its dealings with local communities. Waymos across the US have reportedly had 696 accidents between 2021 and 2024. That's about 1 every other day. However, Waymo has attempted to keep its crash data out of the hands of the general public. In 2022, Waymo sued the California Department of Motor Vehicles to block a public records request, saying that releasing its crash data to the general public could, quote, provide strategic insight to Waymo's competitors and third parties regarding Waymo's assessment of those collisions. I, for one, think that the public has a right to know the safety and crash data of any motor vehicle, so that we can make a better informed decision about if we want to choose to step into a driverless car or not. The general public shouldn't be in the dark about the safety of anything that we use. Cigarettes, vapes, airplanes, medications, motor vehicles, and robo-taxis included. Speaking of being in the dark, Waymo has been introduced into different cities with no community input, and often without even the city's leaders knowing about its presence. In the city of Santa Monica, city officials didn't even know that Waymo had set up a parking lot with EV charging stations until after complaints from residents started coming in. Waymo didn't talk to the city's leaders before setting up shop. It didn't talk to local residents either, the very people that are impacted by the presence of a bunch of driverless vehicles swarming around the city the most. Without a thought paid to the interests of the local community, Waymo has begun to use Santa Monica streets as a testing ground for its new technology. And now, understandably, the residents are pissed. Number 3. Some may argue, actually, I would argue, that Waymo and the hype around autonomous vehicles serve as a distraction from investing in meaningful public transportation infrastructure and walkable cities. You know, things that would make a city like LA more livable and more accessible for its residents. At the same time that Los Angeles has like 4 metro lines and we still don't have a direct metro to LAX airport connection, folks are understandably confused why we would let some random autonomous vehicle company use our city as a testing ground. The presence of Waymo makes LA even more car-centric than it already is. And this is at the same time that Mayor Karen Bass has pledged to host a car-free Olympics in 2028. And don't tell me, oh, we're gonna live in a future where all the cars are autonomous and it's gonna be amazing and it's gonna be wonderful and we're gonna have no problems. You know who you sound like? You sound like exactly this guy from WALL-E. Plus, that narrative of a distant, beautiful future where all the cars are AI chatbots, and you don't have to even look at a single other human being to get to your destination, all of that is a distraction from investing in real infrastructure projects that would help ordinary residents. Remember when Elon Musk promised to build the Hyperloop in Las Vegas and it was gonna be beautiful, and it was gonna solve all of Las Vegas's traffic woes, just for it to turn out to be a complete sham designed so that the government wouldn't build actual transportation infrastructure? Yeah, a lot of folks view this the same way. Meanwhile, Spain has put down like 2,500 miles of high-speed rail since 1992. And in LA, we still can't take the metro to the fucking airport. I mean, seriously, call me a freak, but I actually like to walk around every now and then, Actually talk to people every now and then. Interact, with other human beings. Okay, number 4, Waymo has become a symbol of the big tech oligarchy. If you didn't know, Waymo is owned by Alphabet, the same company that owns Google. In recent years, there has been a big backlash to big tech. People like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos have all received backlash as a sort of figureheads of the big tech, ultra-wealthy billionaire class that lords over our society, hand in hand with President Trump. At the same time that ordinary residents work their asses off to pay rent and to put food on the table, our tech overlords are using cities like Los Angeles as their personal little play places to test all of their new and expensive technological toys, like Waymos, at the expense of residents. And ever since the marriage of big tech and the Republican Party, as demonstrated most clearly by Elon Musk's grift to the right, Waymos stand out as an extremely visible reminder of the partnership between big tech and the conservative project. Whether it be the surveillance and military contractor Palantir being used by ICE to conduct workplace raids on hardworking migrant workers, or Waymo cameras literally being used to surveil ordinary Americans, the relationship between big tech and by extension Waymos, to Donald Trump's immigration enforcement raids has been irreversibly solidified. It's no wonder protesters hate Waymos. They stand out as a visible symbol of the very thing that they are protesting against: ICE raids and government outreach. So that's why people hate Waymos. Heavy stuff. So before I wade into the weeds of whether or not it's right or okay for protesters to set Waymos on fire, let me tell you a lighthearted story about how residents in Santa Monica are fighting back against Waymos that are constantly honking, keeping them up at night, and terrorizing their streets. I couldn't say it better myself, so let me read you this LA Times article. Orange cones are mysteriously appearing on roads and alleyways, leading to the Waymos parking lots, forcing the driverless cars to stop. Sometimes, with no apparent rhyme or reason, a vehicle will be stopped in front of a lot entrance, blocking the Waymos path. In other instances, it will be a slow-walking resident who just happens to be in the way, triggering a backup of the cars in a strategy that the locals have taken to calling stacking the Waymos. One resident was so effective at disrupting operations that parking lot workers called the police on him 6 times, and the company unsuccessfully sought a temporary restraining order from a judge. Some locals say they'll continue to deal with the Waymos themselves. On a recent evening, a resident told the Times reporter the honking Waymos woke them up after midnight again. So the resident got up, headed out, and once again started stacking the Waymos. I don't know why, but I just love that terminology so much, stacking the Waymos. Okay, anyways, what about the LA protests? Some of you may be asking, is it okay? Is it bad? Is it good for protesters to destroy the Waymos? Honestly, I don't give a fuck. The entire purpose of a protest is to disrupt the normal happenings of society, to bring attention to the cause that you care about. As long as nobody gets hurt, that's really all that matters, isn't it? Now, I know that folks often have a knee-jerk negative reaction to anyone saying anything remotely close to this, but please, at least hear me out. Firstly, people say that protesters destroying the Waymos is bad because it is violent. To that, I would ask, why is violence important to you? Most people would say that they care about violence because they care about innocent people being harmed. If that's the case for you, then I'd agree with you 100%. Does destroying a Waymo, though, harm ordinary folks like you and me? No. Really, what we should be more angry about is law enforcement shooting civilians with less lethal rounds and spraying folks with tear gas. Okay, maybe that all makes sense for you. But still, you feel like destruction of property is bad because it harms Waymo. After all, they're going to have to replace all those destroyed cars, right? Yes, it does harm Waymo. For me though, I have a hard time having empathy for a faceless corporation owned by the same big tech billionaires as Google. The next question that people ask is, what if it happened to your own car or to a small business? Obviously, that would be horrible, and I would not be okay with that. But I hope that it's obvious why there's a big difference here. Me, just one ordinary guy trying to pay rent and afford groceries every month. A small business, just ordinary people trying to make a living for themselves. Waymo and Alphabet, a giant, faceless tech conglomerate owned by billionaires whose technology has been used to surveil ordinary Americans. In fact, causing financial damage to unjust institutions might just be the entire point of most protests throughout history. The Montgomery bus boycott was meant to bring financial damage to the segregated public transportation system in Montgomery. The Greensboro sit-ins were meant to bring financial damage to the Woolworths, which refused to serve black folks. The 2023 auto worker strike was meant to bring financial damage to the US automakers so that they would pay workers a fair wage. If you're still of the mindset that protesters destroying Waymos was bad and that law enforcement firing less lethal rounds and tear gas at protesters was good, take a look at this comic. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Anyways, that's all I wanted to yab about today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.